Oh, it's very tense.
Okay, Chair. Yeah, we're now live.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Scrutiny Commission at Charnwood Borough Council. There are a number of things that I would like to remind people before we start with the items on the agenda. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council's website following the meeting. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may film, record or tweet this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. However, people wishing to film or record the meeting should do so in a way that does not disrupt the business of the meeting. Also, so that the meeting is not disturbed, could I ask everyone present to please turn off your mobile phones or switch them to silent, and ensure that your environment is distraction-free. And can I remind everyone that this is a public meeting, so please conduct yourself in the appropriate manner. Thank you. I would also request that you put your microphones on mute unless you are going to speak. Right, as it is a virtual meeting, it will be run slightly different. Members will need to introduce themselves and state their name and confirm that they can hear and see proceedings. This is important for the purpose of recording attendance and transparency of the meeting. I will do this by undertaking an alphabetical roll call. Members will use the raise hand feature in the participants section of the Zoom software if they wish to speak, and will be allowed to do so in a queue system. Right. Councillor Bolton, can you confirm that you are...
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Jill Bolton, I confirm that I can both see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Hi, Chair. Yes, I can both see and hear. Thank you.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Grimley, I can see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Nicolau. You're on mute, Councillor. Councillor Harsh Nicolau. Shall we just take that as read?
I have tried, it is second time I'm trying now. Thank you, Chair. I can hear and see everything. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ransom.
Chair, I can hear and see everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hamilton, I can see and hear proceedings.
And the next name is mine, and I can see and hear the proceedings also. As I want to also ask the officers to verbally confirm that they are here as well, and the lead members. So, Councillor Barclay.
Chair, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen Mullen, which is the Strategic Director of Housing, Planning and Regeneration and Regulatory Services.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear.
Thank you very much. Rob Mitchell, Chief Executive, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can both see and hear.
Thank you. Simon Jackson, Head of Finance and Property Services.
Not sort of. I can hear and see proceedings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ian Olwyn, Group Accountant.
Yes, Chair, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Adrian Ward, Head of Strategic Support.
Thank you, Chair. I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Matt Goodger, Information Development Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can hear and see the proceedings.
And Sally Watson, Democratic Service Officer.
Thank you, Chair. I can hear and see the proceedings.
Thank you. Apologies.
Can we just
Chair, just to say, I can also hear and see you. I think I should be on your list to speak.
Oh, should you? Probably. But thank you very much, Jonathan. Thank you.
Chair,
yeah.
can we make sure Leslie Tansey can hear and see the proceedings as well?
Sorry, did I miss you off? Sorry, Leslie Tansley, Head of Finance and Property Services.
Thank you, Chair. I can see and hear the proceedings. Thank you.
Apologies. Right, apologies. Are there any apologies? Have any apologies received?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Minutes from the previous meeting. Members are to confirm this independently, so I'm going to ask again alphabetically whether you can confirm the minutes. So, Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm the minutes.
Councillor Brooks.
Yes, Chair, I confirm the minutes. Thank you.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I have to abstain from this.
Councillor Harsh-Nicolau.
Sorry, yes, I confirm the minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Yes, Chair, I confirm the minutes.
Councillor Ransom.
Chair, I'll abstain because I wasn't at the previous meeting in June. Thank you.
And I will also abstain because I wasn't at the meeting. So I confirm that the minutes have been verbally confirmed. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary and personal interest. I haven't received any so far. Have you got any to present tonight? No, thank you. I haven't had a declaration of party whip, unless anybody knows otherwise. And questions under scrutiny committee procedures 11.16. No questions have been submitted. Is that so? Still correct? Yes, thank you. Right, item 6, economic recovery cell update. And Eileen Mallon, would you like to introduce the report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There's a short presentation I thought would be helpful for committee to just take you through a few slides on this rather than go through the detailed paper and, of course, the detailed work programme that you have before you. Apologies to those members who may have seen little bits of this before. I do appreciate there's some new members of committee this evening who won't have kind of followed the trail of this. So this is our approach to economic recovery, and committee asked for this at its last meeting when they received the cabinet report of the 4th of June regarding the overall approach to the COVID response that the council was following. And this is the first cell that is coming before you for further consideration this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, so first slide, please. Thank you. So Cabinet received a full report on the 4th of June that detailed the approach to our response to the emerging pandemic, how we were going to adapt and facilitate support for our communities and businesses. And obviously within that report, we considered implications for our own corporate strategies, our corporate delivery plan, budget and capital programme. And we did recognise at the time that this is a long-term recovery process and there is a need for us to work collectively with our partners. Next slide, please. So as you can see from this slide, there's a whole structure in place across the county in dealing with the recovery elements of the pandemic. And this isn't just the economic recovery, this is all sorts of the different ways that the county as a whole is dealing with it. So it's a multi-agency approach and the Borough Council is part of that approach. So we are represented on various parts of this structure. And in addition, we've set up our own internal structure to help us deal with our own direct responses as well as those at a county level. Next slide, please. So internally, we have our own structure. It consists of a recovery group at the centre, which the Chief Executive chairs, and consists of the strategic directors, which includes our new director now, Justin Henry, who joined us last week, and a number of key heads of service, and also a representative of the Resilience Forum. Obviously, that group reports into Cabinet, and we've divided the recovery actions into 3 cells, which is community recovery, economic recovery, and our own organisation recovery. And tonight we're looking at the details in relation to economic recovery. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary of the kind of things that the recovery group collectively is having oversight of across the organisation. If you could just go back one slide, please. So obviously there's a number of objectives is to oversee the actions of the 3 different cells and provide any guidance and strategic decision making in terms of things like finance and governance, to find solutions to any issues raised by the groups that we can't deal with at the group level, to look at and monitor the costs, to link to the county level local resilience forums, and to oversee communications for each cell for members of the public and the business community, and to ensure that the recovery plans for each of the cells are coordinated. So the kind of overarching recovery group just draws all the strands together from the 3 main cells. And of course, to keep members informed of all the different plans and activities that we have. Next slide, please. Looking specifically now at the economic recovery cell, there's a range of things that we've been looking at with this cell. And we are looking at both the short, medium and long-term economic development issues that are emerging across the borough. Obviously, our first priority has been the immediacy of dealing with the pandemic, so our response activities. We are looking at support in terms of economic recovery by assessing finances internally and seeking opportunities for additional monies to support any potential projects that we can identify. Looking to improve networks for support and inclusivity by working in partnership with a range of other agencies across the borough to support the return to a new normal. And we're also working with those agencies to see how we might prioritise and deliver services in the future. An example of that is working with the market traders in our efforts to return the market as quickly as possible and going through a 3-stage process for that. And we're also working with a range of local businesses, partners, communities and stakeholders as we support economic recovery generally. We've split the cell into a number of key themes. Next slide, please. So the first theme is around our partnership working to build back better. So this is an opportunity to look at any initiatives that we can, which when we return to the new normal, we have a kind of better approach, if you like, to our infrastructure. So it's to take that opportunity that the pandemic might have given us to see if we can build on some of the initiatives that will come out of it to improve some of the economic structures that we've got within the borough. Obviously, one of the key strands has been to back our businesses in terms of communication engagement with local businesses, providing proactive support to commission research that looks at the economic impacts of the pandemic across the borough, and then also to set up a series of actions to deal with those impacts. And of course, very hands-on in managing a safe and welcome return to maximise the opportunities for residents across all the borough to return to the businesses and to shops and leisure facilities as and when, and to take whatever action we need to ensure we've got a safe and welcome return so that people do feel confident when they go to the towns and villages across the borough. And this includes service delivery in car parks, markets, parks and events. Next slide, please. So one of the key things that we looked at straight away in terms of the economic cell was the ongoing support for businesses. As part of the initial response elements rather than the recovery elements to the pandemic, there was a business cell set up specifically to deal with the grants that were coming out and emerging from central government, and that was led by Simon and the finance team. So what we were focusing on in the economic recovery cell was the next stage, which was the high street opening supporting businesses as they return from lockdown, liaising with county highways and police to make sure that we had things in place to enable the high streets to open in a safe way. We looked then also at the nighttime economy returning in the 4th of July opening weekend, and we looked at things like how we could facilitate cafes and restaurants with outdoor space to enable them to bring customers back as quickly as we could. And one of the ongoing issues we've got is reviewing the events calendar, identifying the go and no-go dates, and looking at alternative provision for any of the major events. I'll go through a few of the highlights, Chair, and pick out some of the things that we've been doing. You'll see from the work programme the extent of the actions that we've taken. So I copied that in Appendix A for you, and I've picked a few highlights out. So the first thing is our Charnwood in Business campaign. We thought it was really important once the businesses were back up and running to let people know about them. So we've designed a Charnwood in Business campaign, which we're doing with Leicester Mercury, Leicestershire Live, the Loughborough and Shepshed Echo and FOSS 107 Radio. And this offers local companies some free advertising space. We're going to look at doing some spotlights on different localities to try and raise the profile. I'm pleased to say that since I did the slides last week, we've now got a further 30 businesses signed up to that, so we can accommodate a few more. Since we started the campaign, which launches this week, we've also had the additional lockdown in Leicester, and some of the businesses in the south of the borough will be affected by that. So we are now looking at extending the campaign and specifically looking at some of those businesses when they come out of the new lockdown, that they've been enduring now for the last week, and we don't know when that will end, but when it does, we'll be able to support those businesses specifically so that they don't miss out on the campaign. Next slide, please. I think one of the key things we've been doing that's taken a lot of our energy has been making sure that the shops across the towns and the villages can open safely and in accordance with the regulations. We've been working with Love Loughborough, and we've commissioned Love Loughborough to work not just within Loughborough town centre, but also across the borough with some of the other towns and villages to support them with their range of information and advice. And obviously our own regulatory services teams have been working closely with businesses as well to make sure that they can manoeuvre their ways through all the new regulations that they've faced, that they can trade safely, and that they can keep their customers and staff safe. We've also got some promotions going with Leicestershire Promotions in relation to tourism when that comes back online. And we've been doing our own initiatives like car park and remaining free. We've looked at touchless entry, which you can now do at Beehive Lane in terms of tickets, but there's still some payments that are using the machines. So we are looking at those. And then when we've got those things in place, we'll be reviewing the next part of the strategy in relation to car parking charges. Next slide, please. Some of the more practical things we've done, which you may have noticed in and around Loughborough and the larger towns and villages, we had high street helpers out and about on the first weeks, the first fortnight, making sure that people were able to understand the queuing systems that we've put in place, all the signage and the messages around hygiene and social distancing. We've put in some pop-up cycle racks across the borough to make it easier for people to access the shops by using cycles rather than public transport. We've also evaluated all the queuing systems and mapped out all the queuing systems for the major towns to make sure that each of the shops had a facility to arrange the queues that best suited them. We implemented a bronze and silver control system during the first 2 weeks so that we could identify immediate problems on the ground and get immediate solutions. And we work closely with our colleagues in Leicestershire Police during that process. And we provided ongoing advice and assistance to businesses so that they could make sure that they were doing everything they could to open safely. Next slide, please. Obviously, once the shops opened, we then turned our attention to hospitality and the nighttime economy. You will realise that some of these establishments already have licences for their businesses, so we needed to look at the range of licences that they had, what alternatives they needed for any new things that they wanted to do in terms of outdoor space, whether or not the new regulations fitted their businesses and what they wanted to do. Extension of outdoor areas for restaurants and cafes, we are still in the process of looking at. We wanted to promote a safe and friendly opening over the weekend, and we think we achieved that. The feedback was very good. We worked with police and partners. We had some stewarding out and about in Loughborough, and we did some stewarding on a mobile basis across the larger towns. We spoke to all of the nighttime economy businesses to understand when they were opening, what arrangements they put in place to look after customers and whether they understood the regulations. And we worked with colleagues at the Beard and Pub Watch. Obviously, almost at the 11th hour, we had the impact of the Leicester lockdown to deal with just before the nighttime economy returned. So there were some adjustments that we made in relation to increasing the number of stewards, making sure that we had a bronze and silver control in relation to the nighttime economy opening as well, working closely with Leicestershire Police, and a police officer did go with the stewards on the mobile rounds to make sure that there were no problems emerging through the nighttime economy. And I don't think that anything significant happened over the weekend. So we were really pleased with how that went. And our next focus now will be on some of the issues that might emerge when our students return. So we are in discussions with Loughborough University and Loughborough College about the students and the timetable for students to return. Next slide, please. I think one of the things that we've all been aware of with the pandemic is obviously there have been no social events taking place across the towns and parishes. VE Day celebrations, for example, were all cancelled. We have been working with organisers of all the events around their cancellations. Obviously, as things have emerged and opened up, they've been seeking our advice on whether things are allowed or not under the new regulations. Sometimes there's been online activities taking place in lieu of some of the events. I know the museum has done some events online to try and keep people engaged and interested in some of the things that have been going on. We are in the process of reviewing all of the late summer, autumn and winter events now. We've got the calendar which identifies the day by which we have to make decisions on these. And obviously you'll be aware of, we have 3 major events in the autumn and winter, which is Loughborough Fair, the Remembrance Day and the Christmas Lights Switch On. So we are looking at whether or not these can be delivered and how they might be delivered within the regulations. And mostly these need decisions by the end of August due to the long lead-in time for organising these. So there will be a cabinet report going in August about the status for these events. So in the main, Chair, we've been focused on the immediacy and the kind of reopening of a lot of the economy across the borough. And we are now looking at some of the longer term economic activities that we need to consider. The Town Deal programme for Loughborough, we are now looking at linking that to COVID-19 recovery plans to kickstart the economy again. We'll be looking at the assessment of the pandemic on the whole of the economy of Charnwood, and we've had an initial paper with further analysis on that being undertaken. And obviously we'll have to link it to our regeneration strategy in our local plan, working with our partners and others to look at priorities for investment. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Eileen. It must have been very difficult to write. It was amazing to read, And a lot of the things that I did read on there, you think, oh yeah, of course, that's got to be thought of. And so, you know, the word here, thinking outside the box, doesn't even come into it. It's, you know, you mention one thing and then it kicks up another question, doesn't it? So obviously, before I open it up to other members, the one that I picked up on is on your last page, which is ensure that CBC effectively responds to local COVID-19 outbreaks and support businesses as part of it. So you've just explained to me about the advertising space for obviously Thurmaston, Birstall, parts of Anstey, etc., that are in Charnwood. But I've noticed this hadn't started. So did it become come to as a shock to you, or had you started to prepare something already?
For the advertising campaign, Chair?
No, I meant in general for a localised, although you'd highlighted it in here, but it also said not started yet.
Yeah, so the local lockdown came right at the end of our period when we were preparing the campaign for the whole borough. So obviously it takes a little bit of a lead in time. So once we'd got the brand and identified what it was we wanted to do, we then sent out to every business in the borough to see if they wanted to be part of the campaign. So we've been taking those responses. The businesses have provided us with their information and what they wanted to put into the campaign themselves. So we've been doing that with this launch date in mind, which is this week. And obviously towards the end of that process, the local lockdown came for some of those businesses. So we will be making sure that what they've sent us will get featured once those businesses are up and running again. So it's just an example of like all these things that have happened throughout the pandemic. As you said at the beginning, it is something about we just have to react to the things that are happening. So we do tend to set a course as much as we can, but then something will come out from government about a new regulation, or in this case, the lockdown, and then we just have to react to that as best we can.
Thank you. Could I ask if Councillor Barclay would like to comment on this piece of work, please?
Thank you, Chair. It's not completely under my portfolio, but I think that we've done an amazing job, really. We've granted £29 million out to support businesses in Charnwood through government funding, and we've also had another 1.6 million which we successfully distributed to those who weren't successful under the first grant. Really pleasing to hear how well it went at the weekend, which it didn't just happen. There's been, as reading the report, you can see there's weeks and weeks of work gone into it. We've actually employed wardens, and throughout the whole borough it seems to have worked very well. But it's difficult for all businesses. We just need to keep along the way we're going and gradually return to something like normal. You know, the local problems we had, the Shire counties, particularly Leicestershire, is certainly warmer than the other Shire counties. Leicester City is locked down. But, you know, our officers and have done a fantastic job here. And I think that's borne out by what's happened at the weekend. And I haven't really got anything else to say, Chair.
Thank you. Right, am I managing the raise hand system? Yeah, okay. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on the open at the shopping facilities. Have the public toilets now been reopened? Are they still shut?
The public toilets are open in Market Street, Chair, yes, Marketplace. And they're also open at the outwards for the park facilities and at Queen's Park. So I don't know about the parishes. Some of the parishes look after the public toilets in the parishes, and I'm not sure whether all of them were confident in opening them or not. We did offer any support to them if they wanted to understand how we'd gone about it for ours in terms of cleaning regimes and other things. So we are offering help and assistance to parishes, but I think some of them are making their own decisions about their own facilities, and that includes things like play areas as well. But in town, yes, we've got some of the public toilets open.
That's great, thanks. That shows that the Outwoods about a month ago and they weren't open, but good to hear they are opening now.
Councillor Bolton. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions, so shall I just dive in and ask?
Yeah, just dive in.
Okay, my first question is, well, first comment, the paper was excellent, so thank you to everybody that works on that. First question, you mentioned on page 17 that an organisation called Third Life Economics are doing an economic impact assessment for us. And I wondered when that would be completed and able to be shared with us. Second question, do we know what the position is with the university? There seem to be regular updates on when the students are coming back, or indeed if they are. If the students don't fully return, do we have a feeling of what the impact is likely to be on the borough, and particularly Loughborough itself? And my third question, and then I will shut up, God forbid it should happen, but are we in Charnwood ready to manage a second lockdown if it does occur? So those are my questions, Eileen, or whoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take some. I think Rob might want to take, I can see him nodding, Rob might want to take another. So Third Life Economics, it's a consultant who we had commissioned for our work on the town deal. It's actually a single person. It's a sole trader, if you like. So not a big consultancy firm. And that was a deliberate decision on our part, actually. He's called David Marlowe. And he's been working with us on the town deal. And when we were looking at the economic impacts of the pandemic, we thought we would need some proper analysis of it, because although there's things available at county level and national level, we wanted a Charnwood level to look at the specifics within Charnwood and within sector by sector. So fortunately for us, David Marlowe have extensive expertise in recovery and economic analysis for recovery, and he's worked for the government on some major recovery projects before. So we extended his commission to look at recovery for us with Charnwood on a sector by sector basis, first with an overview paper which he has submitted, and subsequently once we've been able to analyse that and digest it, with some more specifics for us. So we do have the first draft of David's paper. Because of the opening of both the high street and the nighttime economy, officers haven't had chance yet, Chair, to analyse that and have a look at it and identify some of the more specific things that we need to. But we have commissioned David on a call down basis. So when we go through that and link it with the information that's coming at us from the LEP around the county-wide impact, we will then be able to ask David to do other specific pieces of work to assist us. And I'll be happy to share that paper with the members of the committee, Chair, as soon as we've had a look at it and make sure that there's no issues in there that we think shouldn't be put before the committee, if you like, because obviously he's not a council employee, so we'll have a look at that. We do have a meeting scheduled later on this week to look at the next stages for the longer term economic recovery. And then we'll be asking David to pick that up more specifically. In terms of the university, I know the Chief Exec has been in touch with the head of his equivalent at the university, and my understanding is the plans are that students will be returning. It will be one of the areas we'll ask David Marlowe to look at in terms of his sector analysis. So what we've asked him to do, and we'll ask him to drill down even more, is a sector by sector analysis, and also with area analysis as well, so we can see which sectors are struggling, what the impact is of each sector and which areas are struggling as well, so that we can look very locally at what the economic impact is across the whole of the borough. And And if there's another lockdown, I think I'll leave that to the chief.
Thank you. Rob, over to you then.
I hope Eileen just means that question rather than the whole of any future lockdown, because help so far has been invaluable. So just a quick comment on the university. I have been meeting regularly with my counterpart at the university, and also we have a regular meeting which the leader attends as well with a couple of other key partners within the borough. The university are planning to return as many students as practically possible, depending on the guidance that prevails at the time, and they're taking a very careful and considered approach to how they do that. I think obviously, you know, the number of students returning and the effect that has on our economy, both in terms of Loughborough and elsewhere, will need to be considered as part of the work as Eileen's described. But however many students do come back in whatever form, we're also keen to work with the university to support them back in a very safe and considered way, but also to help get them into the town centre, into our businesses, and supporting the local economy as they have done over the years. And there are some initial plans of how we might do that coming forward to sort of the September intake. In terms of the future lockdown, I think we're obviously conscious of that, and any further outbreaks that there might be in Charnwood. We're monitoring that as best we can with the information that we have. But I think it's worth pointing out that we're doing a lot of work through the Local Resilience Partnership on an ongoing basis to try and ensure that prevention around monitoring of high risk settings, monitoring of COVID-19 guidance in terms of workplaces, making sure that we are still communicating to our residents that there is a risk out there and there is still a public health issue that needs to be considered, and promoting all of the correct messages around that is an important thing that we continue to do. There is now a outbreak plan which the government required each local authority at a county and city level to produce, and we were involved around producing that. And if it did come to pass that we had an outbreak in Charnwood, then we would obviously wish to be very much a part of that response. It would be dominated by Public Health England as one of the lead authorities, and also by the Director of Public Health from the County Council. But we would assume that we'll be very thoroughly plugged in terms of local community business engagement, and we provide a lot of resource and expertise through our environmental health teams as well, who may be involved in some of the outbreak management. So we're obviously learning from what's happening in the current Leicester and Leicestershire lockdown, and working closely with our colleagues through the Local Resilience Forum on some of the issues that's brought to bear. So I think we're reasonably well prepared, but I would stress the importance of prevention and making sure that we balance the opening economy and the messages around social distancing and hand washing and all of those other messages that we've been so strong on so far. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rob Mitchell. Eileen Mallon, is it possible to have those slides sent out to all councillors?
Yes, the Chair, they are with committee services, so that can be attached to the minutes.
Okay, I was just about to invite Councillor Morgan to say anything, but oh, he's back again. I did that on purpose, you know. Councillor Morgan, it's an amazing piece of work that's had to be pulled through under three parts. So, is there anything you'd like to say on the work?
Thank you, Chair. So just to add, I mean, it is extraordinary to think that in the last sort of 4 months, what the council's done, not only support residents and businesses across the borough, but also to actually change the way that it operates almost in its entirety. I mean, the fact that we're actually having this meeting online and have been able to do so almost from the very beginning of the pandemic, I think it's a huge testament to not only our team in ICS, but also to Democratic Services, to all the officers involved, all the support officers, to enable us to actually function as an organisation, but also to actually go way beyond our normal activities to actually support our community in the way that we have, delivering over 6,000 food parcels, for instance, to residents across the borough, being able to actually support businesses by the millions of pounds since the pandemic started through government schemes and also through our discretionary scheme, but also now planning for what comes next. And the paper that you've seen, I think, starts to just set out some of the broad areas that we're now working in, and those are developing almost by the day. As you picked up quite rightly at the beginning, some of the things are things that we probably would never even have considered a few weeks ago. In fact, almost every other day, something comes up that suddenly there's a bit of a, gosh, yeah, we need to find a solution to that. And I have to say our officers are doing so. We are truly leading in not only Leicestershire, but also in the region as far as our responses to the pandemic and the support that we're actually giving to residents and businesses. It's commented on by those nationally, but also I think hopefully recognised locally by those that we have been able to support and help. So huge thank you to all the staff involved, likewise to councillors who have been working to support our communities. It's a huge piece of work. It's barely starting. The amount that we've still got to do is immense, and quite right, Councillor Bolton picked up the possibility. If there is another wave at some point, we're going to have to dig deep and actually carry on doing what we're doing now, and support through some difficult months to come. But it has been extraordinary. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I've got no more raised hands, and I would like this work to be noted and acknowledged about the enormous amount of work that's gone into this, and again to thank all the officers involved. Thank you. Right, I'm going on to item 7, which is pre-decision scrutiny of any specific financial matters to be considered by the Cabinet. And the following items have been identified for pre-scrutiny by the Cabinet for the Cabinet agenda of 9th of July 2020. So we turn to item 7A, which is Capital Plan Outturn Report 2019-2020, which is page 46 of your agenda. Could I ask Leslie Tansley to introduce the report, please? Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Capital Plan Outturn Report. The Capital Plan has capital budgets of 9.2 million that we're requesting to be carried forward into 2021. That's a general fund of 8.4 million and HRA of 886,000. The major items are detailed on the following pages. These items will be added to a new 3-year plan that was set and approved at the budget stage this year. What we are planning to do is to look at the slippage that's included in the report, along with the new capital plan as a whole. And there is a forward programme item for October, which we are looking at the whole of the capital plan. So I'm quite happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Olwyn, is there anything you'd like to add to that at all?
Sorry, I can't. I was clicking on the wrong thing. No, that's fine. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Barclay.
Thank you, Chair. I think, as everybody knows, the world has changed quite dramatically since the 23rd of March and lockdown. The majority of the carry forward, there was 5 million for the commercialisation project, which we thought was we may use, which we're not going to use. That was the investment in commercial property. The other items which are outstanding are the £600,000 from the Shed Bullring project, £575 from the disabilities grants, and we weren't able to spend some money for house acquisitions. They didn't go through. And we've also got the Bedford Square project to go through. But I think more important than this is looking forward to the future. We are having an interim capital plan and budget coming forward, which is highly unusual, but it's absolutely necessary. We remain in a sound financial position, but our finances have been pretty heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Pleasing to hear that we've lost income, but the plan going ahead is fully financed. How we financed it in 2019-20 is shown on page 50 of the report. What will be interesting in October will be an updated capital strategy, updated capital plan, and updated interim budget to show where we are going in the current situation. There's no getting away from it. It has transformed things. Our medium-term financial strategy has been pulled forward. Where we were going to be in 3 years, we probably are likely to be at the end of this year. Quite pleasing to hear that in addition to the existing financial help we've received, we are likely to receive from the government, although we haven't got the details, 70% grant in respect of income losses that we have endured. But we're going to be working very hard coming up to October, and there will be the opportunity for Scrutiny Commission to see the new budgets, new interim plans, and new capital strategy. And that's all I've got to say. I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barclay. Can I open it up to the members now? If you'd like any questions for Ian Olwyn, Leslie Tansley or Tom Barclay. I have no raised hands here. So I'm going to ask the committee if they support the recommendations that are set out on page 46 of the agenda, that the outturn position of 2019-2020 be noted, and that the slippage of the capital budgets totalling 9,292,200 be carried forward to 2020-2021, be approved. And the slippage will be added to year 3 capital plan. That's recommendation 1. Recommendation 2, that the provisional financing of the plan as set out in table 2 be noted. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with both recommendations.
Councillor Brooks.
I agree that the recommendations should be approved. Thank you.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I agree the recommendations should be approved.
Councillor Hodge-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with both.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ranson.
I agree, Chair, with both recommendations.
And I agree with both recommendations as well. Thank you very much, councillors. Right, I'd like to you to move on to item 7B, which is the General Fund and HRA revenue outturn 2019-2020 and carry forward budget, which is page 54 on your papers. Can I ask Leslie Tansley to introduce this paper, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is the revenue outturn report for 1920 and the carry forward budget. We've got the general fund outturn position and the HRA outturn position to be noted. We have one carry forward request of 5,600 to do with some Unit 4 upgrades that are essential that didn't get done last year. So there's just one item to be carried forward. We did set a budget to use 971,000 of reserves, which is in the general fund in the Appendix 1. We've actually used, in addition to that, another 1.4 million, leaving our balances, our working balances at 4.5 million. The items, the major items are listed on Appendix 2 of the report, the major general fund under and overspends. And the HRA, there was a surplus of 171,000, and Appendix 4 shows a balance on HRA of 8.2 million. I'm quite happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I cannot see any raised hands. Are there any questions that the councillors would like to clarify? Any clarification on this paper? Right then, there is 2 recommendations on this paper. Recommendation 1, that the revenue outturn positions of the General Fund and Housing Revenue Account for 2019-2020 be noted. And the recommendation 2, that carry forwards of budget amounting to 5.6 million for Unit 4 upgrades, making tax digital GDPR financial system upgrade, that are still to be finalised in 2020. This is to be funded from the General Fund working balance. Could I ask again for the councillors to confirm that they are accepting these? Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I accept both recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, likewise, I agree that the recommendations be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I agree the recommendations can be accepted.
Councillor Haj-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with both recommendations.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the recommendations.
Councillor Ransom.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with both recommendations.
Thank you. And I agree with both recommendations as well. Right, item 8, Cabinet items for pre-decision scrutiny. The following item has been identified for pre-decision scrutiny from the Cabinet agenda for the 9th of July 2020. This is an exempt report and will be considered under item 13. So we move on to item 9, the pre-decision scrutiny, Cabinet response, page 67 of your papers. Could I ask Adrian Ward to introduce the report to note? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is really just an information item to keep the Commission informed of Cabinet's response to recommendations and comments from the Commission in relation to previous items that were selected for pre-decision scrutiny.
Thank you. I need to ask if there's any members that have got any comments that they wish to make. And it says here, confirm that the report is noted. Do I need to go to the councillors for this? Asking for help. Thank you very much. Okay, so if I move on to item 10, which is a commercialisation scrutiny panel report, and this is to discuss whether it will go to Cabinet. So members of the committee, if they have any comments they wish to make on this report, can you raise your hands if you have any comments? No. Right, ask the committee in turn if they've agreed with the action requested. That the Scrutiny Commission considers the commercialisation scrutiny panel report attached and an annex to this report, and if satisfied, submit to the next available Cabinet meeting, which is later on this week. So can I ask Councillor Bolton?
I agree with the requested action.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brooks?
Yes, I agree as well. Thank you.
Councillor Grimley?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with this.
Councillor Haj-Nicolau?
Thank you, Chair. I agree.
I think each time I say that it's different, but there you go. Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you, Chair. I agree.
Councillor Ransom?
I agree, Chair. Thank you.
And I agree also. Thank you. So if we move on now to item 11, which is Scrutiny Commission Work Programme. Adrian Ward, would you like to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is to keep the Commission up to date with the current work programme of matters you've agreed moving forward, and also to present the forward plan of Cabinet decisions, reports and any Office key decisions that are scheduled in at the moment, to determine a heads up as to whether or not the committee may wish to flag some of those for potential pre-decision scrutiny when we get to the appropriate point in time.
Thank you. Any members want to make any comments on the work programme so far? If I could ask you for any suggestions when the Cabinet papers, the forward plan is on Cabinet scrutiny is released, if you could let me know, please. I've identified one, and that is the public space protection order for Loughborough Town Centre to come to Cabinet on the 17th of September. I'd like that one to be noted. Thank you very much, Adrian Ward. Right, now going to move to item 12. Right, I suddenly had item 10 in front of me, which is the exempt information. On this, proposed to exclude members of the public from the meeting during the consideration of the following item on the grounds that it will involve and the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 and 5 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. And it is considered that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Could I have a seconder, please?
Chair, I second this proposal.
Thank you. Could I also ask the members, please, I'll go through alphabetical, to confirm either for the proposal or otherwise. Councillor Bolton.
In favour.
Brooks. Councillor Brooks, sorry.
For.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Harsh-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Ransom.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Seaton, I am for as well. So I'll confirm the outcome is to discuss this exempt and to remove any public from the meetings.